Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by No Halftime. Use promo code BBALL100 to get up to a $100 deposit bonus to use in the app. You can find the No Halftime app on the Apple Store and Amazon.com. This episode of the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast is also sponsored by Draft, a daily fantasy app where your chances of winning are almost 3 times better than on FanDuel or DraftKings. On Draft, it's draft day every day. You can do a simple snake draft for one day whenever you want. Drafts take just minutes to complete. Download Draft now. Be sure to enter the promo code DFBPOD when you download to get a 100% deposit bonus. And with that, we are off. Welcome to the show for Tuesday, November 29th. Hope you guys had a decent Monday night playing DFS. Well, I should say I'm your host. You guys know me. I'm Daniel Green. You can find me on Twitter at DanielAGreen1, otherwise known as the Judge. As I was saying, hope you guys had a good Monday night of DFS. It was an interesting night, very bizarre. Things that we don't normally like to see happened. We saw Zach LaVine destroy Utah. No one destroys Utah, which is a good foreshadow of today's show. Zach LaVine went off for like 40. I forgot what it was, 48 FanDuel points, something like that. Enes Kanter had his one good game a month where he put up 44 FanDuel points. So those two guys were very. I think those two guys were key in the winning slam lineup on FanDuel. Also, Goran Dragic put up 55 FanDuel points. He was questionable all day. Then right before lineup lock, found out where he's going to play. Same with Whiteside. He was questionable all day, and then he played. He put up 50 FanDuel points. So if you played those two, good job for you. Kelly Olynyk, he didn't start, but was supposed to start, and then he didn't. He still did well. It was a topsy-turvy day. Hope you guys were following the news and ended up okay. I had a decent night. I made a small profit, which I'll take because I didn't cash in my cash games. My tournament lineups luckily salvaged my day, but in cash games, I'm trying to see who did I play? Who doomed me in my cash games? I think I tried to block it out already so fast. In cash games, I was doomed. Oh yeah, this is a guy that all of us hated on Monday, and that's Oladipo. You played Bradley Beal, you probably did well. You played Oladipo, you struggled. Also James Johnson, that's the bum for Miami. The Miami guys, I did not have Dragic and Whiteside, and I played Richardson, who did okay but not great, and then stupid James Johnson, who actually played well. I watched that entire game. He just missed shots. I watched him miss like at least 4 or 5 wide open 3-pointers. It was very disturbing, but he got good looks and he played hard, so you can't really, can't blame him. That happens. Anyway, let's move on to Tuesday. Let's hope you make some money. A 6-game slate. It's actually a very scary 6-game slate. So what I want you to do is take a couple deep breaths right now. Picture some sickening, horrifying sounds, some images maybe. So get you ready for Tuesday's slate because it's pretty nasty. Oh God. While you do that, my dog lost a ball. I'm gonna get my dog's ball. Nothing like doing a live show. All right, over under, he does that. He loses his ball about 5 more times during the show. Like I was saying, it's a weird slate, man. You're gonna have to do things that make you feel sick and queasy, but don't worry, we'll get through it together, and hopefully, with the show, we'll help you out, give you some tips. We'll run through the plays. In terms of the game, so this, like I said, 6 games, man. The best game in terms of over/under is a game that should be a blowout. It's the Clippers at Brooklyn. I played a lot of Chris Paul and Blake 2 days ago, and that came back to bite me in the you-know-what. The Clippers played like their worst offensive game like in 6-7 years. They were atrocious. I'm trying to think who they even played now. They did not play a good team. I remember that. Well, I quick try to find that. I'll just say they got to bounce back. You would expect after that horrific performance. And now I think they've lost 2 straight. They lost to Detroit a couple of days ago, and then they lost to – my stupid iPhone would load. I don't like the new NBA Game Time app, man. They changed it. I like the version from last year. I don't know if you guys use that app a lot. I use that app a lot, and it's kind of annoying. Oh yeah, the Clippers played Indiana. Not a very good team. They lost by 21. It was embarrassing. They put up 70 points. Just a brutal performance. So this is going to be a tricky game. The problem is this slate sucks, and Brooklyn is horrendous. Brooklyn plays tops in the league, I think, in pace. The Clippers normally are not high in pace. So the Clippers are playing way up in pace. That should help them. In addition, if you look at defensive versus position, I mean, look how bad Brooklyn is. They give up the most fancy points to point guards, the third most to shooting guards, the fifth most to small forwards, the second most to power forwards, and the most versus centers. So, I mean, you attack Brooklyn at every position in DFS. So we're going to have to do that on Tuesday. It's going to be a little painful coming off the last Clippers game, but I'm telling you, after we go through all the plays in cash, you're probably going to be using a good amount of Clippers. Other games to attack, let's see, you got the Lakers and Pelicans. That should be a good game. The problem is the Lakers, I mean, it's hard to play those guys in cash, even when they have a bunch of injuries. So we'll talk about that game later, or players later on. Anthony Davis is probably the best play of the day by far, though, because Harden is going up, and Houston is going up at Utah. Finally, a game where Harden, has a really, really tough matchup here. You normally on a small play, he'd be a lock and load in my lineups for sure. And the question is going to be, are you going to play Harden in cash against Utah? We just saw what Zach LaVine did against Utah, right? So it can be done. And Harden's a hell of a lot better player than Zach LaVine. So this is going to be intriguing to see what happens here. The over-under is only 202.5. It's actually probably the highest over-under Utah is going to have all year. Another good game is Cleveland at the Bucks. That game, Cleveland's only favored by 6.5, so that might be a game that you want to game stack. Yeah, I'll probably have game stacks of Lakers, Pelicans, Cleveland, Bucks, and maybe even the Clippers and Nets if that game can stay close. But it's. And and then Orlando's playing San Antonio in 196 over under. That's just a disgusting game. And you have Detroit at Charlotte, 198 over under, another disgusting game. So it's going to be tricky, but we'll get through it. Let's move into the positions. But before we do, let me give a quick shout out to the Chambers winner, man. We've had, for the first time this year, I think for only the second time in the history of the Chambers, which is now in its second year, we've had a back-to-back winner, which is pretty tough to do, man. I mean, typically, if you've been playing in my Chambers tournament, and by the way, if you want to get in, I know it fills up fast. So some of you have told me that you're too scared to play in it because you don't want to get beat down. You should not be scared to enter this tournament. First of all, it's only $2, the entry fee, and it's just a fun experience, man. Like this is just for fun. So I would try to get in it. If you want to get in it, just send me a tweet, and I'll make sure I'll send you the link. Before I open it up live to the public, and I'll get you in. But Daniel, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Daniel Erde, E-R-D-E. He's taken down the Chambers last 2 nights, so he's going to move up very high in the power rankings. Congrats to him. Very impressive performance. And I mean, like to cash in the Chambers, man, you need about 10 points higher than you do to cash in like the Slam, which is the $25 entry fee tournament on FanDuel, which is one of the main tournaments I play. So Chambers, it's always a good time. If you do well in Chambers, you absolutely had a great night playing on any tournament, any double up, any head to head, on FanDuel. So it's another good night there. All right, enough of that jibber jabber. Let's move on to the plays, man. Let's start with point guard. FanDuel would open up for me. I'm very prepared for this show. Dude, it's like, you guys got to cut me some slack. It's like 3 a.m, so I got to get up and go to the office at like 7. So these shows can be rough. But we will manage. All right, here we go. I got this FanDuel screen up. So point guard, I'm telling you, a lot of these positions, it's not like, a typical – this is 6 games. 6 games normally you have a lot of good plays. And this slate is just it's harder because you have 2 games that are absolutely atrocious, and then you got teams like the Spurs and Utah. So it's definitely trickier than a normal 5-6 game slate. With point guards though, so Chris Paul is the top play in terms of price. As I was just saying a few minutes ago, God, he was dreadful 2 days ago, just brutal. This year overall he's been okay. His price has actually dipped. I mean, this is the cheapest I've seen Chris Paul in I mean a couple of years. He's 8.8K on FanDuel. His price. His numbers are down, first of all, because the Clippers were blowing everyone out. They were playing phenomenal to start the year, and then lately they've just sucked. So it's they've been an interesting, weird team. I think a lot of it is because they're veterans, and they know the regular season doesn't really matter. So it's hard for these guys to get motivated. This is one reason why sometimes I prefer to play younger, hungrier guys, especially as the season progresses. Guys like Chris Paul, Blake, DeAndre Jordan. I mean, what do they care about the regular season anymore? And it showed two nights ago against Indiana. They didn't care at all. It was super frustrating if you roster these guys. But anyway, Chris Paul is still, right now he's going to be a cash game play for me. Granted, will that hold? I'm not sure. But Brooklyn, like I said, Brooklyn gives up the most points to opposing point guards. Chris Paul, this is about the cheapest he'll ever be. Even if this game becomes a blowout, it's going to be because Chris Paul, because of Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. So he's still, a very nice play. I don't know. His ceiling, he's had one game of he's had one game where he's topped over 50 FanDuel points this year. So I see it very tough for him to top 50 FanDuel points, but I think his floor is around 35 for Tuesday, and I think that's reasonable. He's safe for cash, I think, but he's not a must play. But again, you can attack these Brooklyn guards. They're so pathetic. I don't know who's to be starting on Tuesday for them, and it might be Whitehead, Kilpatrick. It's just a bunch of bums. So CP3 is fine. Kemba Walker, 8.4K. So Kemba's price is pretty close to Chris Paul, actually. It came up. Kemba is coming off a bad game at Memphis where only put up 24 FanDuel points. But before that, he's been one of my consistency monsters that I've loved to play for cash all year. His usage rate is phenomenal. Where is it? Where are you at, Kemba? A 31.1% true usage rate. And true usage basically just adds in things like three-pointers. It's more of one of the advanced analytics stats instead of, usage rate. You can go with true usage rate. So 31% true usage rate, which is phenomenal. It's the highest out of any guard playing on Tuesday. So I think Kemba is a really nice play. The problem here is he's going up against Detroit. I think he's going to see some KCP defense. KCP is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. That worries me a little bit. Either way, I'm playing Kemba in tournaments for sure. The question is, do I want to roll with him in cash? And that's what I'm not entirely sure of. Detroit gives up, where are they? The 19th most FanDuel points to opposing point guards. So that's, on the surface, sounds great, right? A lot of other things go into that, pace and things of that nature. But so Kemba, good play. He's got a nice, safe floor, and he's got some upside too. So it's interesting to see if I had to choose between Chris Paul and Kemba right now, I probably would just lean Chris Paul just because of that matchup. But it's you can make arguments either way. Quite honestly, the next guy up, another fantastic play, and that's for cash, and that's Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, his price never goes up. It's been 7.6 since 1947, when I was only 6 years old. It's unbelievable, his salary, and he basically puts up. Let's see. I'm not gonna count the game against Dallas where they won by 50. Every other game before that, though, his floor is 31 FanDuel points. But the problem is his ceiling. He's had one game of. I thought he had one game of in the 50s, but I don't even see that. It looks like his highest has been 46 FanDuel points, which he hit twice this year. And one time it was the last game at Philly. But he's been just super solid, super consistent. Speaking of usage rate, his is 31%. His is right behind Kemba. So if you don't want to spend up on CP3 and Kemba, Kyrie's another very safe play at Milwaukee. This is one of the highest over-unders of the day in a game that should stay close. So all three of these first guys I mentioned are perfectly fine for cash. If you want to not spend up on CP3 and Kemba, you can easily go Kyrie. You could, quite honestly, if you don't want to deal with all this nonsense, jibber jabbering, just put Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love in your cash games and then turn off the show. You can honestly do that almost every night. Those guys, are everything to that team, and all three of those guys are going to have good games on Tuesday. Drew Holiday's next up, 7.3K versus the Lakers. I love the matchup. Drew, he's still priced too high for me. This price should be coming down. His minutes, he's still barely cracking 30 minutes. He's only done it twice this year, and his high is 31. So that, until he plays more, I'm not going to expect him getting more minutes. And he's, the last, I'll read off his game logs in terms of FanDuel points. The last, 4 or 5 games: 27, 25, 22, 29. So, he needs 37 to hit value. He did that his first 2 games, like barely. Right on the nose, and then other than that, he hasn't hit that. So tournament play for me only. I do like attacking the Lakers. They are a team that can be attacked defensively, even though they're better this year. But I can't play him in cash at that price. That price, he should be 6.5K for right now. That's way too high at FanDuel. FanDuel, get your act together. Next up, George Hill. This is another guy, and he's cash game worthy. I mean, in a fantastic matchup versus Houston. So Utah's playing way up in pace for them. George Hill has been so rock solid and steady this year. I keep fading him. And he keeps hitting value. He's the price tag scares me. I don't think he's a 6.8K player, but his production, and if you watch him play, it says otherwise. I mean, against Minnesota on Monday, he was fantastic. 34 minutes, 24 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 38 FanDuel points. So, I mean, 6.8K, he's got to get you like 33, 34. I mean, the problem with George Hill is the ceiling. His floor seems to be super safe at this point. The ceiling, I think is right around 40. I think he's between a 30 and 40 FanDuel point player. So I think, while he's safe, if you want, and you can go that route in cash on Tuesday if you want. I think Kyrie, Kemba, and even CP3, they all have a little higher ceilings. Next up, Elfrid Payton. So at San Antonio, Elfrid Payton is 5.7K. If you do want to attack the Spurs, you do it at the point guard position. The Spurs give up, wow, they're still ranked really good in terms of look at defensive versus position. They've only given up the 9th, they've given up the 9th most FanDuel points, so that's pretty good. So, but that, I think that's a little bit misleading because Tony Parker was out a lot of those games. Tony Parker is playing, I think, on Tuesday, and he cannot play defense. So this is why DVP, I don't trust this. I use it mostly as like a tiebreaker. Some of the time I think it's full of crap, and sometimes I think it's useful. So take defensive first position with a grain of salt whenever you're looking at that. The problem with Payton, though, is he got benched. If you were following the news, playing DFS a couple nights ago, you know that Orlando, they switched their starting lineup. Frank Vogel benched Fournier. I mean, not Fournier. Fournier went nuts. He benched Payton and he benched Vucevic. Now, Payton and Vucevic still both had decent games, especially Vucevic went nuts, and they both played decent minutes. Payton played 29 minutes, had 16 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, put up 23 FanDuel points. But he's 5.7K, so that's not going to cut it. So if he's not starting, that makes him for sure I can't play him in cash. Maybe would I still have a lineup or two in a tournament? Maybe on a 6-game slate, I might do it. But if he's not starting, you can't love him. If his minutes are capped at 30, I mean, what's Elfrid Payton's ceiling? Maybe 30. So that's he's not super enticing if he's not going to start. So keep an eye on what Frank Vogel does on Tuesday. Ish Smith is up next. This buster, God, I played a ton of Ish Smith in their last game against OKC. Everybody kills Westbrook on defense. Not Ish Smith. Only put up 19 FanDuel points in 31 minutes. Derrick Rose destroyed Russell Westbrook on Monday. So, Ish Smith, there's never anything to love with him. I don't think the price is fine, 5.2K. The matchup's going to be slow and paced. It's going to be nasty. I guess if you just want to be different, you want to wear like a pocket square to work one day, or maybe you want to wear, a bow tie, play some Ish Smith. Otherwise, in that matchup, I'm not too high on him on Tuesday. Tim Frazier, 5.1K versus the Lakers. I'll have a little Frazier exposure in tournaments. I mean, 4 games ago, he put up a 53 FanDuel point night. But the last 2 he's been 15 and 19. So he's been inconsistent. What's his usage rate? I want to look at that real quick. Now they got Drew Holiday playing, a lot of minutes. A lot of times Frazier will, his usage has been going down lately. It's 23%. So not a fantastic usage rate. The only thing I'll say, I will play him in line. I love playing like a Frazier, Anthony Davis lineup, and maybe I'll play even a Drew Holiday, Anthony Davis lineup too. I might have even skipped over Drew Holiday. I don't even know if I talked about him now. No, I did. I mentioned Drew. But I'll probably play maybe one GPP lineup of Drew and AD, and then one or two of Ish, or one or two of Tim Frazier and AD. Just because I love getting guys. I mean, if Tim Frazier goes off, right, it's gonna be a lot of it's gonna be due to assists, and he's gonna have to give those to Anthony Davis on Tuesday. So tournament play, I think only for me on Tuesday for Tim Frazier. Patrick Beverley, 4.5K. I know a lot of us played him on Sunday, even in cash. They had a really nice matchup versus Dame Judi Dench-Lillard. He did not play that well. 35. He got 35 minutes, and that's what hurt me. That's what made me the most angry. Only got one actual point. He put up 15 FanDuel points. I mean, you would think against Dame Judi Dench, 35 minutes, he's going to, stumble into a three-pointer or something. But still, I mean, the minutes are there. The price is there. Obviously, Utah, I like to avoid. But his price is so low. If you want to play a little Beverley, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to get too crazy. Obviously, the ceiling is limited with Patrick Beverley, especially against Utah. So I don't love the play on Tuesday. Tony Parker, he's 4.5K versus Orlando. If you want to roll out Tony Parker in a cash game, I'm fine with it. I think his floor is right around, is probably like 17, 18 FanDuel points. He did a couple nights ago, but other than that, he's been 23, 18, 29, 28, 24, 23. So, it's certainly not the Tony Parker of 4 or 5 years ago. He still has a usage rate of 23% though, and at 4.5K, he's okay. I mean, I don't mind it. Again, the ceiling is not. If he gets 30 FanDuel points, I'd do a somersault in my living room because I don't think that's going to happen. But if cash games, okay, you can do it. Dellavedova, 4.1K. If you want to, save some more money, he's getting 30 minutes a night. So if you want to use him in cash, go ahead. The other guy I'll mention is, I guess I'll mention two other guys. Whitehead for Brooklyn is starting. I played this buster a couple nights ago. He's getting 20. Just watch the injury news. If he starts, he gets like 30 minutes. He sucks at basketball. But if you're getting 30 minutes, I mean, there's a chance he can get 20, 25 FanDuel points, right? So you can play him if you want. And then DJ Augustine. So if Peyton got benched for Augustine, Augustine's 3.6K. He played phenomenal against the Bucks on Sunday. The problem was he only got 25 minutes, even though he started. He put up 21 FanDuel points, though. I had a decent amount of exposure. If he's starting, I'll play him in a couple lineups for sure. And if he's starting, I think you can play him in cash. He's going to get 15, 16 FanDuel points, and that's all you really got to hit if you're to hit value. So he's okay as well. But again, I still think limited upside with him because clearly Vogel's still going to give Elfrid Payton, at the minimum 24 minutes. All right, shooting guard. Shooting guard is going to be interesting for us on Tuesday. James Harden, mentioned him at the top of the show. He's 11.5K, so the price has come down from 11.7, but it's at Utah. Harden, usage rate of 39%. It's insane. Next to Westbrook, he's the second best player in DFS, in my opinion. I think pretty clear cut. He's got a floor basically of 50 FanDuel points. Although if you look at his game logs, 56, 44, 51, 50, 54. So the last 5 games or so, wow, his most is the most he's had is 56. So I mean I'm going to say it, man. You don't have to play Harden in cash on Tuesday. I still think you can do it just because I still think he's going to put up like 50 FanDuel points against Utah. I don't think we're going to see a 70 or 80 FanDuel point night, which he's capable of doing as well. But I still think he's okay play for cash, but you certainly don't have to do it. He's not a must-play in cash anymore. Right now, I do not have him in my cash game lineup. But we'll see. We'll see what happens if any value opens up as Tuesday progresses and things of that nature. But I'll tell you one thing for sure. I will play him in tournaments. I'm absolutely going to have some tournament exposure. This is probably going to be the lowest owned he's going to be all year. So, we did just see Zach LaVine go off for 48 against Utah. So if Zach LaVine can do it, I mean, I guess there's a chance that Harden can do it, right? So very interested to see what happens in that game with Harden and Utah. Giannis. So, since I don't want to use Harden probably in cash, a guy who I'm looking to is Giannis at 10K, 1.5K cheaper versus Cleveland in a really nice high over-under game that should stay close. Giannis has been super consistent. He fills up the stat sheet. It's just, last game was his worst game he's played in a while, and that was 37 FanDuel points. I think that's about his floor. So I actually like him as I love him in tournaments on Tuesday, and I love him for cash games as well. Nick Batum, 6.9K. Nick Batum is coming off maybe his worst game of the year. He put up on Monday against Memphis, 23 minutes, 12 FanDuel points. And Charlotte blew out Memphis too, so this was surprising. That was one of the weirdest games of the night. And also Mike Conley got hurt. I mean, Memphis is just a disaster. Watched them get beat by Miami a couple nights ago. Batum, the thing about Batum I like is that he's not a one-trick pony. He's not a DeMar DeRozan. He's not scoring dependent. He fills up the stat sheet, but he can also have duds. So he's a boomer bust player. At 6.9K, you cannot afford a dud. Therefore, I can't play him in cash. His true usage rate is only 21% because Kemba does so much of the shooting on that team. Batum does facilitate some of the offense, so I think he's fine for tournaments. I think he'll be low owned. Not a great matchup versus Detroit. If KCP is not on Kemba, he's going to be on Batum, even though I think Batum's too big for. I guess KCP can guard Batum too. So all signs point to Batum having a bad night. So in DFS world, I mean, we all know that means he's probably going to go off, right? So I'll play him in a couple tournaments, but on paper, not a good situation for Batum. Next up is Evan Fournier, 5.8K. This is the one, him and Vucevic for Orlando have been just beautiful lately. 2 of the last 3 games, he's been over 39 FanDuel points. He had 48 against Milwaukee. 20. He's locked in the high 30s in minutes. He's by far Orlando's number one option. His usage rate is 24%, but I think that's a little misleading because it's been higher in the last few games. The problem here is he gets the Spurs and he gets a Danny Green defense. Danny Green is another one of those lockdown defenders that I like to avoid. I mean, but on this 6-game slate, we can't avoid everyone, right? I mean, it looks. I mean, we just said Batum's got a tough matchup versus KCP. Harden's got a bad matchup against Utah. And whoever guards him there. So I will have some exposure to Fournier. The question is, do I feel comfortable doing it in cash against the Spurs and Danny Green defense? I'm not sure. As of right now, I do not have him in cash games, but I still think he's probably okay to do that with. Right now, his floor seems to me to be about 24 FanDuel points. So he's fine. I'll definitely have him in tournaments. The Spurs, they're playing a little better in pace this year. Orlando is the team that is so bad in pace. But I do think, I have seen games where people have had big games against the Spurs this year as well. So, Fournier will be an interesting guy, see what his ownership is. I think he's fine. Definitely a fine play for tournaments. Rodney Hood, 5.5K. Hood started off the year really well. He has not been that great lately. Last 4 have been 21, 13, 23, and 20. That price is too high for me. He's 5.5K. He's right now he's playing like a 5K player. The one thing I love here is talking about matchups. He gets James Harden defense, and that's non-existent defense. So this may be a day to unleash Hood in tournaments. I haven't played Hood, I think since the last time they played Houston. The last time they played Houston was, the 19th. And, Rodney Hood played 34 minutes, 25 points, 33 FanDuel points. So he's torched Houston before. I think he can do it again. I still am not going to use him in cash. You want to use him in tournaments, though. I think you can fire him up on Tuesday. Sean Kilpatrick, 5.3K. Just keep an eye out on the news. My theory on Kilpatrick is if he starts, I'm going to play him. And if he doesn't start, I'm not going to play him. And it's, his minutes are tied right into that starting spot. If he starts, he gets in the, low 30s. If he doesn't, he's right around 20. So the last 3 has been great: 34, 28, and 33 FanDuel points. You can play some point guard for Brooklyn. You can play some shooting guard. Either way, Brooklyn, they need him to score when he's on the court. So he's an interesting play. If he starts, you can use him in cash. I don't know if I'm going to. Right now, he's a tournament-only play for me. But I think he's an intriguing play. And the one position for the Clippers that you can attack is some J.J. Redick defense. So Kilpatrick I like on Tuesday. Jordan Clarkson, we know what Lou Williams is going to do. He's not going to start Clarkson. But last couple games, actually, he started Clarkson 2 games ago, but I don't think that's going to happen again. The last game is a better game to look at in terms of minutes. He got 32 minutes. So if you tell me Jordan Clarkson's not going to start, but he's still going to get 32 minutes, I'll sign up for that every day of the week. He put up 34 FanDuel points against Atlanta, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. At New Orleans, you can attack the hell out of the Pelicans. They are not a good defensive team. They are ranked. They give up the 3rd or 4th most FanDuel points to shooting guards. So Jordan Clarkson is a fantastic play. I'm fine with if you want to use him in cash, quite honestly, even though he's not starting. Don't let that faze you. And I think he's a good tournament play too. KCP. KCP is 5K. KCP, I think a lot of us played him. I've been playing him the last 2 weeks. I think, unfortunately, I finally convinced a lot of you to play him a couple nights ago against OKC, and he crapped the bed. You got the minutes are always there. I mean, he got 34 minutes. The problem was he had some Oladipo defense, and he only put up 10 points and 2 rebounds, and he put up 13 FanDuel points. That was his worst game that he's played in about 2 weeks. So, that due to recency bias, a lot of you may be off KCP. On Tuesday, I'm still going to play him. I don't know if I want to play him in cash on this slate. But I will definitely have some exposure in tournaments to him. I think 5. I mean, this is you're going to have a dilemma. On Monday, we had the dilemma: do we play Bradley Beal at 6K, or do we play Oladipo? Today, it's going to be around this 5K mark. Do we play Kilpatrick, Clarkson, KCP, Lou Williams, even Eric Gordon? So there's a bunch of guys. You're going to have a tough decision to make. I mean, right now, out of all those guys, I like Clarkson 1. If Kilpatrick starts, I would go Kilpatrick 2, and then KCP 3, and then really close with that Lou Williams. I mean, Lou Williams is probably the boomer bust play out of those 4. So KCP is, I'm still fine with playing him. I think he's always under-owned. So you feel free to fire him up. Not the best matchup in the world for Charlotte, but he's still fine. Lou Williams, 5K. He's, without Russell, he's not starting either. But he's, Luke Walton. He's given him about 26 minutes or so. Last couple games, 29 FanDuel points versus Atlanta, 18 versus Golden State. The last 2. Lou Williams has been pretty consistent this year. I still don't want to play him in cash games because he's still a little too boomer bust for me. But with that said, I think he might be an elite tournament play on Tuesday against the Pelicans. He's going to get up a lot of shots. Real quickly, I'm trying to find his usage rate. Where is Sweet Lou? Yes, I mean his true usage rate is 29%. The only bench guy that has a higher one on Tuesday is Drew Holiday, and Drew Holiday is basically a starter. So I think Lou Williams is. I don't want to play him in cash. I'd probably prefer Jordan Clarkson in cash. But if I had to go tournaments, I think Lou is a good play. I mean, you easily can go Clarkson and Lou Williams in tournaments on Tuesday. I mean, you can definitely attack the hell out of that Pelicans defense. Eric Gordon's next up, 4.9K at Utah. He went nuts last game against Portland, but Utah is not Portland. He put up 39 FanDuel points in 30 minutes. I mean, the thing with Eric Gordon is, he's dipped into a price range where that's way too cheap for him. So I'm going to play him a little bit on Tuesday just because, he's more of a 5.5K player. But, he's like Brandon Knight. He's like the Morris brothers. A lot of guys lately, for whatever reasons, have dipped below that 5K. I mean, first of all, rightfully so. I mean, their production has sucked this year, but their talent is there. So, Eric Gordon at 4.9K, tournament play only. I'm sure a lot of people are going to fade him because it's Utah. Then again, due to the recency bias, the last game against Portland, maybe people do play him a little bit. But I still think if you want to play Eric Gordon, you can differentiate your lineups. It's fine. I mean, I don't love the play. I wouldn't do it in cash. JJ Redick, 4.3K. Man, one of my boys on Twitter was just crushing Redick because he played him in cash on it was Sunday, and JJ Redick had 6 FanDuel points. But I'm telling you, throw that Clipper game out the window. Before that, he's been pretty consistent, man. 26, 11, 22, 22, 30, 33, 29, 24. So at 4.3K, JJ Redick is perfectly suitable for cash against a dreadful Brooklyn team. The ceiling is not the best. I think his ceiling is like right around 30 FanDuel points, but his floor is basically around 20. So if you want to save some money, you can use JJ Redick. Danny Green, 4.1K. I used him against Washington for the first time all year on Sunday, I think it was. Gave me only 16 FanDuel points. Before that, he had 29 and 24. I'm going to use him against Orlando in tournaments on Tuesday. We've seen in the past he has 40 FanDuel point upside. So I want some Danny Green exposure. Nick Young, if you want to use Nick Young at 4K, go ahead. I'd never play him, even though he starts. He gets 24 minutes, and he basically hits value most nights. But I just still refuse to play him. And then Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy Lamb, with Batum coming back, everyone faded Lamb for the most part, except the guy who won Chambers, Daniel Erde. Lamb went nuts again at Memphis. He played against the Knicks when Batum was out. He was awesome. He had 42 FanDuel points. At Memphis, though, he was great too. He played 23 minutes, 21 points, 36 FanDuel points. So maybe Lamb is a thing if you want to throw him in some tournaments, man. Go ahead on Tuesday. All right, small forward. I think right now a lock for my cash games, LeBron, 10.1K. I'm not going to overthink this one too much. A night when I'm not going to play Harden in cash, I think I want to lean towards LeBron. So, it's LeBron James, man. I'm not going to say too much else. Kawhi, 8.4K versus Orlando in this nasty game. Kawhi, he hasn't hit 50 FanDuel points since November 4th. It's almost been a month. To basically win a GPP these days, you need someone hitting like 6 times value. So I'm not sure why Kawhi's play. I mean, he's still been really good. He's been pretty consistent, 31, 45, 46, 42, 49. So if you want to roll out, Kawhi, he's perfectly suitable for cash. I'm perfectly fine with it. But in terms of a GPP, I'm fine with that too. But my point here is he just hasn't been the same Kawhi. Now he's going to bust out eventually, but it's been a little disappointing. So you would think in a slow-paced game, would not be the game where he busts out for a 50 FanDuel point night. But the way DFS has been going lately, God only knows. But I'll have some Kawhi exposure for sure. I just don't expect him to have a monster night in that crappy game against Orlando. Gordon Hayward, 7.6K. Man, if there's a day for Gordon Hayward to go off, this could be it against Houston. Utah's playing way up in pace. Hayward's been really consistent anyway. He's been a nice cash game player. 37, 37, 41, 34 FanDuel points his last 4 games. So he's really safe on Tuesday if you want to roll him out in cash. And you can also throw him in some tournaments because with Utah playing up in pace, he's going to get some extra shots, and that's going to be extra FanDuel points. And that could lead us to some extra money. His usage rate's 28%. Wish it was a tad higher, but that's still pretty good. And I'll have a lot of him on Tuesday. Trevor Ariza, 5.4K. he's actually been relatively consistent the last 4 or 5 games, giving you, a floor of, he had one game of 20, but other than that, it's been 27, 29, 36 FanDuel points. He's always under-owned this year. Since it's against Utah, he's going to be a tournament-only play for me. If I have 20 lineups, maybe I throw him in like 2 or 3. So not a ton of exposure, but a little bit. MKG, 5.2K. No, thank you. I just don't want to play a lot of him. Marcus Morris. Wow, he's dipped all the way down to 4.7K for Marcus Morris. The Morris brothers have fallen so freaking far. I mean, it's weird. Like, they're both getting so many minutes. Marcus got 35 minutes last game. 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 17 FanDuel points. I mean, he needs to get you 22, 23 FanDuel points. And he's only done that like once out of the last 5 games. It's just so sad. I'm going to use him in tournaments for sure. He can give you 30. He's going to have a night where he gives you 30, 35 FanDuel points. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but for gosh darn it, it's going to happen. His usage rate is piss poor at 21%. That's not ideal. But yeah, don't play him in cash. You just can't right now. It's as sad as that sounds at that price. I probably wouldn't. And then throw him in some tournaments. He'll go off eventually. Just it's a matter of when. Bogdanovich, 4.2K. He's been pretty crappy lately. If you want to throw him in the lineup, go ahead. He's only hit 20 FanDuel points one time in the last 5 games. But he has 35, 40 FanDuel point potential. So tournament only play for me in Bogdanovich. Aaron Gordon, 4.1K. So we all know Aaron Gordon started 2 days ago. How'd that work out, do you ask? Not great. He played 32 minutes. The problem, and he actually put up 16 FanDuel points. So at 4K, he basically gave us 4 times value. So he didn't destroy our lineups. The problem was he shot 0 for 12 from the floor. But if you watch the game, the shots were there. So if he's starting again, I am going right back to the well on Tuesday. If he's going to get 12 freaking shots, let's say he makes 4 of them. If he makes 4 of them, he's going to get 25 FanDuel points. So that's 6 times value. So just, even against San Antonio, so if he's starting, I will have some exposure to him in tournaments for sure. Even in cash games, if he's starting, I think he's safe to play. I know all of us, one day, a couple years ago, thought he's going to be a superstar in the league. So maybe he's not going to give us the 40, 50 FanDuel point nights we once envisioned. But at 4.1K, he can lead us to glory. Now, I don't know if it will be on Tuesday night, but I'll have a little bit of exposure if he's starting. Keep an eye on him and make sure he is. If he's not starting, hell no. Marco Bellinelli, see if he's playing. He played on Monday against Memphis, 13 FanDuel points only, so he's a tournament-only play. And Brandon Ingram, 3.8K. Just find out if he's what his situation is. If he's starting, coming off the bench, who's out for Lakers? Is Randall out? If Randall's out, I'll fire up Ingram in some lineups. If Julius Randle plays on Tuesday, I probably won't have a lot of exposure to Brandon Ingram. But at 3.8K, you could. I mean, they use Ingram at point guard a lot of the times. It's the Lakers. I mean, they do some funky things. You should watch a Laker game if you haven't yet this year. Power forward. So the top play probably on Tuesday, if not LeBron, if not Giannis, it's probably got to be Anthony Davis. Probably, you know what? He is my number 1 play. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I know he's a tin man. I know he's crushed us all before many times, including this year, including like in the last week. And his price has jumped way up. It's 12K now. So he's now the most expensive player on the slate. He's more expensive than James Harden. He's I think Westbrook was 12.2K on Monday. So he's close to Westbrook. So he's got to get us 60 FanDuel points. Against the Lakers, man, you can attack the hell out of them at power forward, though. I don't even care if Randall plays, if Randall doesn't play. That's a position that can certainly be attacked. They could give up the 23rd most FanDuel points to opposing power forwards. Anthony Davis, Put him in your cash games, and tournaments have a lot of exposure too. He's at 60, basically 60 FanDuel points 4 of the last 5 games. In the one game he didn't against Atlanta, that's when he got some weird injury for 2 quarters, and then came, he sat out the second and third and came back in the fourth. So he's been super consistent. I mean, if you take that game out, man, there's been the last 5 games he's played, like regular minutes, he's basically given us over 60 FanDuel points. So, as much as we think he's a tin man, he doesn't have a heart and he gets injured too easily, it's too hard to pass up on Tuesday. Blake Griffin, 9K. I'm going to have a lot of Blake Griffin exposure for sure in tournaments. I think I'm going to use Anthony Davis in cash right now instead of Blake. So I won't have the money to go Blake as well. But at the top of the show, we mentioned, you can attack every position for Brooklyn. The pace is really high for this game. So if you want to fade Anthony Davis in cash and go CP3 and Blake, I can't argue with it against Brooklyn. I really can't. Blake's been good except for the last game when he put up the clunker of 28 FanDuel points, and he sleptwalked. He was sleepwalking through that game and still put up 28 FanDuel points. That's his absolute floor. And his price is down to 9K, so he's got a ceiling of 50 FanDuel points or so. So I think he's a really good tournament play. Kevin Love, 8.4K. Kevin Love is my consistency monster for cash games. The problem here is, are we going to spend all of our money or $20,000 in our salary cap on power forwards? Right now I am. Right now I have Anthony Davis and Kevin Love as my 2 cash game power forwards. So it's made me, spend way down at other spots. But Kevin Love just has been super consistent, consistency monster, 39, 50, 57, 25, one game of a clunker, 46, 39, 37. So against Milwaukee, game should stay close. Really, really nice safe play. LaMarcus Aldridge, man, 7K. Does anyone ever play Aldridge? I don't. So if you look at his box scores, 33, 23, and 39. Maybe on a 6-game slate, man, in a tournament, I'll have 1 or 2 lineups to Aldridge. But it's tough to play him in a really low-paced game. The price is reasonable if he's going to get a full allotment of minutes. But it's hard to love him. Jabari Parker, 6.4K. I've been playing a fair amount of him. The last 2 games, he's really let me down, 21 and 17 FanDuel points. So I'm off him for cash games. If you want to use him in tournaments, you can. He's shown he's got about a 40, 45 FanDuel point upside. Serge Ibaka, 6.2K. Against the Spurs. He's been better lately, man. The last 2 games, 32 and 40 FanDuel points. His usage rate sucks. It's super low when I looked at it earlier. It's like 20%. His defensive stats, though, have been better. He's been getting basically 2 or 3 blocks a game the last week or so. So that's really helped him a lot. So I'll use Serge in some tournaments on Tuesday. I don't want him in cash games yet, though. Trevor Booker, I'm definitely going to stack the hell out of this Clipper Brooklyn game. So I'll have some Booker in some tournaments. I still think at 5.66K you can't play him in cash. Even though other people will say differently, the last 4 games he's been pretty consistent, 26, 32, 42, and 25. But he's had some duds this year of like 10 and 12. So to me, he's still a little bit risky on a night that's pretty loaded in terms of power forward. Power forward is probably the best position on FanDuel on Tuesday. So I don't want Booker in cash, but I'm perfectly fine using him in tournaments. Tobias Harris, another guy I will use in tournaments. He's priced too low. 5.3K. He's the one guy who actually played well against OKC for Detroit. He put up 32 FanDuel points. That's 6 times value. So I will have some Tobias Harris in tournaments on Tuesday for sure. Frank the Tank Kaminsky, 4.7K. If you don't want to spend up on on Anthony Davis and Kevin Love, or you only want to spend up use your money on one of those guys on Love, Blake, or Anthony Davis, Kaminsky's perfectly fine for cash. He's been consistent. I was hoping for more on Monday night. He started really well and ended up only 24 FanDuel points, but that's still hitting value. I think that's basically he's starting right now and locked into 30 minutes. right now his floor is like 30 minutes and 23, 24 FanDuel points. So he's a perfectly suitable cash game play if you don't want to spend up at power forward. Ryan Anderson, Trey Lyles, and John Lure, and Larry Nance Jr. Those are other guys you can play. John Lure, God, he was so bad a couple nights ago, but he's so I really wouldn't play him in cash. He's been super inconsistent, but he's a sneaky tournament play. I think he's going to be low owned against Charlotte. I'm going to have him in a couple lineups. Same with Trey Lyles. Utah's playing a pace up versus Houston. And Ryan Anderson's always can throw a streaky shooter like that in one or two lineups. I mean, his price is so low at 4.6K. Don't love the Utah matchup, but if his shot's hot, he could hit 5-6 times value pretty easily. And then, so many players at power forward. Dear God, Larry Nance Jr., man, 4K. If Julius Randle's out, he's going to get close to like 30 minutes. So then he's in play. So I mean, you guys have the power forward is actually a really tough position to navigate because it's so loaded. I mean, you could go easily go cash game with Frank Kaminsky, and Kevin Love, or actually go if you want to really use two value plays, and you can go if Randall's out, you can go Larry Nance Jr. and Frank Kaminsky. The problem is then you have opportunity cost issues. I mean, can you really risk on this slate to fade Anthony Davis? If he gets 70, 80 FanDuel points, you probably can't recover, especially in a tournament. And in a cash game, I think he's going to be really highly owned too. So it's I still lean towards playing Anthony Davis, even though there are a lot of value guys. In tournaments, feel free to fade Anthony Davis, man. There's no such thing as a bad tournament play. So you can fade AD in tournaments all day. Center is not sexy on Tuesday. It's actually pretty nasty. As great as power forward is, that's how nasty center is. Drummond is the top center, 8.1K. Drummond's been a pretty hot mess this year. God, he's some games in the 20s. A lot he's in the 20s. He's in the 30s a lot. Ugh, I mean, it's tough for him to see the 40s, and once in a while he'll hit a 50 FanDuel point night for you. He's a tournament play for me only. I think he's got a nice matchup. I mean, if one of the Zeller boys is on him, is Frank the Tank going to be guarding him? Is fat, juicy gravy train Al Jefferson going to be guarding him? So Drummond's a nice tournament play. I'm just not going to use him in cash. But tournaments, feel free. Brook Lopez, 7K against the Clippers. Love the usage rate. That's the only thing I love. I don't love the minutes. I don't love the production. Last 3 games, he's been way below value. He's got 26, 27, 26. He's got to give us 35 FanDuel points. I mean, he does have 50 FanDuel point upside, but I'll play him in tournaments. I'll play him in lineups where I stack the Clippers Brooklyn game. But it's hard to play him when his minutes are so limited. Vucevic, so his price has come up to 7K. He's put up over 40 FanDuel points the last 3 games. Even though he didn't start last game, he played 30 minutes, 17 points, 16 rebounds. If he's not starting, I'll play him in a couple tournaments, but I'm not, even though he's been great, I'm not going to have a ton of exposure on Tuesday. So if he's starting, I'm not going to have a ton of exposure, but I'll have a decent amount. I mean, against the Spurs, not the best matchup in the world. It's going to be a really low over/under. So I don't love the Vucevic play. Recency bias, people are gonna gravitate towards him. So I'll probably look elsewhere. But if you want to roll with him in tournaments, I understand. Rudy Gobert, 6.8K. He's coming off his best game of the year, 42 FanDuel points. Price is nice, matchup's nice against Houston. So this may be one of the first days I actually play some Rudy Gobert. I still don't think I want to play him in cash games. I don't think I want to. But as I'm thinking to myself out loud on the podcast to all of you right now, I can convince myself, man. Last 3 games, 42, 33, 37 FanDuel points. And 4 of the last 5, he's been pretty good. He had 120 FanDuel point night, but the game before that, against Houston, he had 40 FanDuel points. So here we go. Against Houston again. You know what? If you want to roll him out in cash, I'm fine with it. I really am. If you guys could, if we had a camera on me, you guys would see me nodding right now. I'm looking at the matchup, and I like it. I don't know what his upside is, man. I don't know. Like, can he hit? Can he give us? You know, what's his ceiling? Is his ceiling 42 FanDuel points? Can he give us a 50 burger? I don't know. Probably not, because the offensive game is not there. But I think for cash, because center's so ugly on Tuesday, I think he's fine. Right now, I do not have him for cash, but you know what? I think I'm going to slide him in. I'm going to slide him in right now. There he is, Rudy Gobert, my cash game center. First time all year. I don't know if it will stay that way. Don't yell at me if it doesn't. But right now, it looks good. DeAndre Jordan, 6.7K against Brooklyn. Whatever, man. He's another guy. I guess you could use him in cash. Very sexy matchup. He's over 30 FanDuel points the last 4 games. Center sucks on Tuesday. I'm gonna find a way to get him in a couple of my lineups. I just don't know where yet, because I think I prefer Gobert to DeAndre. But that's a nice pivot, though. This is what I'm gonna do, and I think I told all you guys on Twitter to do this. So now we have another dilemma, right? So you've seen we've had a couple. You know, on Monday night it was Oladipo versus Beal. On Tuesday you're gonna have one at shooting guard, right? Do you want to go Clarkson, Kilpatrick, KCP, Lou Williams? They're all the same price range. At center, you're now gonna have one between Rudy Gobert and DeAndre Jordan, maybe. Like, what I would do if you play a lot of lineups. I know a lot of you don't. You guys only play 1 or 2 lineups, and that's cool. If you can do it and you play a lot of lineups, play the exact same lineup. In one of them you'll have Gobert, and one of them you have DeAndre Jordan. That way, at the end of the night, you're not banging your head against the wall and saying, I can't believe I went Gobert when Jordan went off, or I can't believe I played Jordan when Gobert went off. You cover all your bases. Quite honestly, you could do that. You could play 3 lineups, have Vucevic in 1. You could play 4, Lopez in 1, Vucevic in another, Gobert in 1, and Jordan in 1. And otherwise, the exact same lineup. See, it's all about how many lineups you play. And if you're a tournament player, you need to be playing a lot of lineups. And even if that means lowering, if you normally played the slam, if you go down to like a $10 GPP, I would recommend that, because the people who are winning the GPPs are the people who are maxing the amount of entries. The more entries, the better you increase your chances. The only way you really win money, like legit money, playing the tournaments, is you got to do well. You got to finish in the top 10. You got to take them down, and you take them down with playing more lineups. So since center is so nasty, I will absolutely have the same lineup, and then 1 with Lopez, 1 with Vucevic, 1 with Gobert, and 1 with DeAndre, covering all my bases. But if I had to rank them, because I know all of us can't do that, hell, even I wasn't doing that like a year ago, I'd rank them Gobert 1. Wow. DeAndre 2, Vucevic 3, and Lopez 4. Ugh. That's tough to do, though. Next up, Pau Gasol, 6.1K. I mean, he's so dirt cheap. He's not a cash play. Don't play him in cash. Don't even think about playing him in cash unless Aldridge is out. If you want to roll him in tournaments, you can. He's got 40 FanDuel point potential, but he's basically going to bust for you 9 out of 10 nights, and he's going to hit one of them. So if you want to throw him in a GPP, go ahead. Clint Capella, 6K. I've been playing so much Clint Capella. He shows up in my dreams. The problem here is up against Rudy Gobert in Utah. So this may be the one day I'm going to have to fade Clint. At least not play him in cash. I mean, I'll play him a little bit in tournaments. I think he's much more expensive on DraftKings. I think he's closer to 7K on DraftKings. So you're getting him at a relative bargain on FanDuel. I mean, his floor has basically been 30 FanDuel points the last week or so. But I don't play anyone against Rudy Gobert. That guy is just a freaking beast. If you look at defensive versus position, Utah gives up. Well, this is why you don't mess with Utah. So Utah gives up the fewest points for point guards, the 4th fewest for shooting guards, the 8th fewest for small forwards, the 2nd fewest for power forwards, and the 7th fewest for center. I'm surprised it's actually that high for center. I think that's because Gobert missed a couple games. So I wouldn't roll Clinton Cash, but I think if you want to play him in tournaments, you can. But that even scares me a little bit against against Gobert. Tristan Thompson, 5K, blech. I mean, go ahead. If you want to use him in cash, go ahead. I'm not. Cody Zeller, 4.8K. He's another guy. If you want to save in cash, you can. He sucked on Monday versus Memphis, but Marc Gasol, everyone sucks versus Marc Gasol. Before that, he gave you 32 and 24 FanDuel points. Even if he's starting, he's not going to give you more than 24, 25 minutes. So his ceiling is very limited. If you want to use him in cash, though, and you really want to save at center, and you have under 5K, it's okay to do. Just remember that it's a okay floor, low ceiling. And that's it for center, man. I'm not going to go any lower than that. I'm not playing any of the other guys. I mean, my conscience wants to mention every player in the world, but I'm not mentioning Bismack Biyombo. Even if he starts 4.2K. I mean, he played 33. Last 2 games, he's played over 30 minutes, and he's given you 17 and 9 FanDuel points. I mean, the guy's a dead man walking. So I don't want Bismack. All right, man, that's it. Woo! Damn, I can't, man. That was a long show. I was hoping to do a short show. It's impossible. I feel the need to discuss every player, this urge. All right, well, I don't know. I feel a little better about the slate. Hopefully you guys do too. It's going to be tricky. It's very difficult. I mean, not seeing Harden in my cash game lineups is a very scary feeling. I'm shaking. I'm trembling. But we'll get through it. I think we can make some money. As always, watch the news. Remember, tweet at me at Daniel A. Green 1. I will unleash my core 4, about a half hour before lineup lock. Otherwise, hope you guys have a good night, have a good day, whenever you're listening to this, and let's make some money. And I will see you guys probably tomorrow. All right? Court is adjourned.